Some people live double lives, they hide secrets, they wear masks to face the world. But Daniel Park's secret was different. It was, stranger, more impossible. He didn't just have two lives, he had two bodies. One was his original self, overlooked, bullied, weak. The other was a miracle, tall, handsome, and impossibly strong. In the heart of Tokyo, one gang ruled the night. They were not just a group of delinquents. They were an army. They were the Tokyo Manji Gang, Toman. Their name was whispered with fear and respect on every street corner. They had a strict hierarchy, a structure that made them unbeatable. At the very top was the commander, the invincible Mikey. Mikey on a shrine, smiling, a kick that could shatter bone. He was the soul of Taman, the charismatic leader everyone would follow into the depths of hell. His word was law. His power was absolute. There are moments that change everything. A single event that shatters your world into a million pieces. For Daniel, Vasco, and their friends, that moment was the death of Vin Jin. Vin wasn't just a friend. He was a pillar of their group. A judo prodigy with a sharp tongue and a hidden loyalty that ran deeper than anyone knew. He was the cool, collected fighter who always seemed 3 steps ahead. He was famous for his sunglasses, which he never took off. Found himself cornered. He was outnumbered. He fought until he couldn't stand. Vin died on the cold pavement. The music was gone. The news hit their group like a tidal wave. It wasn't a fight anymore. It was a war. The grief was a physical thing, a heavy stone in their chests. So they made a pact. They would separate. Each one would search for a new kind of strength. Vasco, the gentle giant, sought out a legendary street fighter. This master's training was brutal and spiritual. Zach Lee, the proud boxer, traveled to the United States. With his original weaker body, he sought out Sophia, a Sistema master who had trained elite bodyguards. They would meet again, and when they did, they would be ready. While the others trained in seclusion, one figure stepped into the spotlight. Gun Park, the kingmaker, saw an opportunity in the chaos. He was a businessman of violence. He created an online fight channel, Guns Fight Club. It was streamed live on the dark web. It was raw, uncensored, brutal. Fighters from all over the city and eventually the country would compete for money, fame, the chance to be noticed by Gun himself. By watching the fights, Gun could identify rising stars, analyze fighting styles, and map out the power dynamics of every gang in the city. The channel was a treasure trove of data. Daniel, in his quest for information, became an avid follower of the channel. Using his perfect body, he entered the ring under a fake name. His fights on the channel became, honestly, legendary. As Daniel, Vasco, and Zach grew stronger, they began to realize a chilling truth. The Tokyo Manji Gang was just the tip of the iceberg. Pulling the strings from the shadows was a much larger, more sinister organization. A faceless entity known as the Workshop. They specialized in identifying and cultivating young, troubled prodigies. They provided funding, resources, and protection, all in exchange for absolute loyalty. Gun Park, the legendary kingmaker, was not an independent operator. He was one of the workshop's most valuable employees. He found the strongest kids and funneled them into the organization's system. He was the gatekeeper. Tallman's rapid, aggressive expansion was not just Mikey's ambition. It was a corporate takeover strategy executed with teenage fists. The kids were just pawns in a much larger, more profitable game. Their quest for revenge was no longer about a single boy. It was about exposing a corrupt system that preyed on the young and vulnerable. The final season of their struggle required them to understand their enemy. Why had the charismatic leader who once spoke of a new era for delinquents become so ruthless? The truth was a tragedy that had been carefully hidden by the Workshop. Years ago, Mikey had an older brother, Shinichiro Sano. He was Mikey's hero, his everything. But Shinichiro was murdered. It was a senseless act of violence during a petty robbery. This event broke something inside Mikey. They approached the grieving lost boy with a proposition. They told him they could help him create a world so powerful, so ordered, that a tragedy like his brother's could never happen again. But their help came at a cost. It required him to abandon his brother's ideals of peace and embrace their philosophy of absolute power. Mikey's ruthless quest for power was not for himself. It was a twisted, desperate attempt to honor his brother's memory. The time for training and gathering intelligence was over. The final confrontation was at hand. Daniel, Vasco, and Zack, now reunited and stronger than ever, sent out a call to arms. They used the networks they had built. It was a ragtag army of underdogs, united by a common cause. Their goal: to take back their city. The first clash erupted in Shibuya, under the neon lights of the famous crossing. Vasco and his burn knuckles faced off against one of Toman's most brutal divisions. Fists flew, bodies fell, but Vasco's group held the line. Meanwhile, Daniel sought out Mikey. He fought his way through the Toman headquarters, a skyscraper owned by one of the workshop's front companies. He faced Toman's elite captains one by one. The final duel took place on the rooftop of the skyscraper, overlooking the city they were fighting for. Daniel versus Mikey. The battle on the rooftop raged under the Tokyo sky. Daniel was outmatched by Mikey's raw power, but he had something Mikey had lost: a reason to fight that wasn't born from darkness. He spoke of Vinjin's loyalty. He spoke of Vasco's justice. He spoke of Shinichiro's true dream. His words chipped away at the armor around Mikey's heart. Finally, exhausted and bleeding, Daniel unleashed a final, desperate attack. It wasn't the strongest blow. It connected. Mikey fell. The Toman army began to falter. Draken and the original Toman arrived to save their friend. The workshop's plan crumbled. The puppeteers were dragged into the light. The war was over. The underdogs had won. They could have become the new rulers of Tokyo's underworld, but they looked at the destruction around them. They remembered the cost of this war, and they chose a different path.